Which new vehicles have the worst engine and transmission failures? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. Today I'm going to share which new vehicles have the most severe and large-scale recalls and investigations involving engine failures and transmission failures that should have you thinking twice about purchasing any of these vehicles. Let's start with the first one, which was a major recall that grabbed a lot of attention in 2024. And that, of course, is with the Toyota Tundra and its twin-turbo V6 engine. The current generation Toyota Tundra launched in 2022 with an all-new design and an all-new twin-turbo V6, which replaced the long-running and well-proven V8 engine from the previous generation. Unfortunately, it has not been smooth sailing, and this engine has proven to be problematic. Toyota recalled around 100,000 of these trucks produced between 2022 to 2023 for potential engine failure, which they claim is due to a manufacturing defect involving metal debris not being properly cleaned from the engines. Fortunately, Toyota has stepped up, and they will be replacing all the defective engines in these trucks for owners. It's the most extensive and expensive recall in Toyota's history, and just goes to show that sometimes even historically reliable brands can make mistakes too. Whether that is the end of problems with these engines or just a sign of more trouble to come remains to be seen. But I would definitely think twice about buying one of these trucks with the intention of keeping it past the warranty until this problem is fully resolved. As bad as that is, though, the Toyota Tundra recall is really just a pin drop when compared to this next major recall, which involves the Chevy and GMC trucks and full-sized SUVs and their V8 engine failures. General Motors has had a long history of severe engine problems with its Ecotec 5.3-liter and 6.2-liter V8 engines, which can be found in the Chevy Silverado, GMC Sierra, Chevy Tahoe, Suburban, GMC Yukon, and a few other models. These engines use cylinder deactivation technology, which is designed to save fuel, but can also lead to problems. The biggest one being collapsing lifters, which can cause the engine to fail. Owners also complain about bearing failure, which can cause the engine to seize, sometimes at extremely low mileage, even before the first oil change. The complaints were severe enough for NHTSA to open an investigation on nearly 900,000 GM vehicles made between 2019 to 2024 with the 6.2-liter engine. And GM has been replacing so many failed engines that they now have a shortage of new engines, leaving owners stranded for weeks who are waiting for an engine replacement. The situation is a total disaster and severe enough that these vehicles should be avoided until GM gets its act together. All modern trucks have their own fair share of problems and recalls, including Ram and Ford. And over at Ford, the most severe recall involves the 2.7-liter and 3-liter Ecoboost V6 engines. NHTSA has recalled over 90,000 Ford and Lincoln vehicles with these engines, made between 2021 to 2022, which can have faulty intake valves causing engines to fail. This recall was the result of an earlier probe by NHTSA involving over 700,000 Ford vehicles with these engines. Unfortunately, Ford's Ecoboost engines have a long history of severe problems, ranging from oil and coolant leaks, cam phaser problems, turbo failure, and timing chain issues. Ford claims many of these problems, including the failing intake valves, have been addressed on the 2024 and 2025 models, but only time will tell. So that was one major recall from General Motors and another major one from Ford. Next, how about a major recall that involves both brands together? Well, that would be with the 10-speed automatic transmission used on many Ford and GM trucks and full-sized SUVs from 2017 onward. This 10-speed transmission, which was designed collaboratively between Ford and GM, has had multiple recalls involving hundreds of thousands of vehicles. This transmission is prone to rough shifting, jerking, unexpected power loss, and even complete transmission failure, with complaints regarding faulty valve bodies, leaking gaskets, and defective torque converters. There have been class action lawsuits for this transmission, and some owners have even had to go through multiple replacements. So it's safe to say that buying a vehicle with one of these transmissions is a huge risk, at least before 2024. And now moving away from GM and Ford, the next major recall that we have to go through comes from Stellantis and its Jeep brand. And this one involves the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe and Wrangler 4xe. These are Jeep's plug-in hybrid vehicles, and as far as hybrids go, these are really easily some of the worst ones on the market. Over 150,000 of these vehicles were recalled for a fire risk that stems from the possibility of the plug-in hybrid's high voltage battery internally failing. There was an earlier recall involving another 32,000 of these vehicles for the same problem. And NHTSA has also opened investigations into these vehicles for reports of vehicles shutting down, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg of a long list of severe problems with these vehicles. Needless to say, avoid them at all costs. Another major engine recall from the past year involves Honda with its 3.5-liter V6 engine. Honda originally recalled around 250,000 vehicles with these engines, but NHTSA later expanded this into an investigation of over 1.4 million vehicles. These include several Honda and Acura models made between 2016 to 2020 with the 3.5-liter V6, which could be at risk for connecting rod bearing failure, causing the engine to fail. Fortunately, the number of actual cases of this happening in the real world seems to be quite small, around 1,500 or so reported cases. So headlines of hearing 1.4 million vehicles affected kind of blows the scale of this problem out of proportion. Still, something to be aware of if you own or are looking to buy one of these vehicles made between 2016 to 2020. And now for another transmission recall, this one involving both Hyundai and Kia with their 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Several Hyundai and Kia models made between 2021 to 2022 were recalled for harsh, jerky, erratic, or hesitating shifting or a complete loss of power while driving. Some of these models were recalled again in 2024 for software-related problems with the same transmission, which could cause the transmission to even fail. Over 100,000 of these vehicles have been affected, but the problems with these dual-clutch transmissions seem to be the most common on the Kia Sorento and Hyundai Santa Fe with the 2.5-liter turbo engine. And this is why I often recommend avoiding vehicles that have dual-clutch transmissions. They have a history of being problematic and are not worth the trouble, especially for a vehicle you plan to own past the warranty. No video about recalls, however, would be complete without this next one. And when it comes to Hyundai and Kia, without question, the king of all recalls involves the 2-liter and 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engines. This is not one single recall, but actually a group of over 50 recalls or so involving several million Hyundai and Kia vehicles made between 2012 all the way up to 2022. The 2-liter and 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engines are prone to several problems, including failed connecting rod bearings, failed piston rings, heavy oil consumption, engine fires, and complete engine failures. Over the decade or so when these engines were used, and the 2-liter is still being used today, several million have been recalled for these problems, leading to thousands of engine replacements, warranty claims, and class action lawsuits. And even to this day, many Hyundai and Kia dealerships and repair shops are replacing dozens of these engines on a weekly basis, which is why you often see scrapyards filled with all kinds of late model Hyundais and Kias that appear to be perfectly fine, but all of them are there because they have failed engines. In addition to major class action lawsuits, Hyundai and Kia were also fined over $200 million by NHTSA for failing to address the recalls in a timely manner. And both companies have famously attempted to dodge warranty claims and avoid covering repairs. And for those who say, well, this is just old news that you keep repeating, well, sorry to tell you, but it's still a major problem today. In fact, in February of 2025, Kia just expanded the recall, adding over 130,000 new vehicles made up to 2023 with the 2-liter engine, which can still experience engine fires and engine failures due to bad piston rings. So clearly this is still a problem. Without question, the severity of these recalls and the resulting fallout are unmatched by any other in the auto industry. And the engine failures are common enough to make buying any used Hyundai or Kia with one of these engines a major risk. So don't do it. Now, as bad as these particular recalls are, it is important to understand that recalls are a normal part of the auto industry and something that almost all car manufacturers have now and then. In a way, recalls are a good thing because they show that the manufacturer is accepting responsibility for the problem and are offering a repair to owners free of charge. To check for recalls, just visit the NHTSA or Transport Canada websites. Many recalls are relatively minor, but others, such as the ones in this video, can be severe and should have you thinking twice about buying the vehicle. So if you've owned any of these vehicles, what has your ownership experience been like? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed and got value out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are planning to purchase a new vehicle and you live here in Ontario, know that OMVIC is the sales regulator which is responsible for administering and enforcing the rules that dealerships must follow. To learn more about your consumer protection rights, just visit omvic.ca. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new vehicle purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.